So you mentioned before, you've mentioned a couple times now, you've got seasons in your life and you've changed your season now. You're now a father, and you've got a whole new career projection. Have you had to, how stable has Home Assistant been through those seasons? Have you had to tear it down and do a whole new automation? Have you started from scratch? Or have you had like a sort of base amount of automations that have stayed with you and you've then built on top of and scrapped others away?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I'm always a little here again, for lack of a better word, envious of. I would love. There's a part of me that would love to tear it down and start from scratch just to see what I would do differently this time around. But interestingly enough, this is also a season in which the idea of tearing down and starting from scratch is incredibly stressful. So, for better or worse, it's been sort of a continuation of what we've run for many years. What I would say is uh, I've noticed, just kind of jotting my notes down, I've noticed automations that we built long before this current season that have suddenly new utility that I didn't expect. Um, and then we've had automations where it's like, man, this has really changed, this element of life. We gotta fill the gap here in order to do something. And but both of those have had their kind of moments. So as an example, one of the kind of automations we had early on that I built because I thought it was an interesting idea. We never really used it all that much. Was we've got one of the original kind of Xiaomi robot vacuums. This sucker's all dented and scuffed, but he's running great. And there was a point in time where I was just pleased as punch that we could integrate that into Home Assistant. And at one point, I kind of started thinking about, well, long pre-LLM predictive intelligence stuff. Could we think about, when should we run this vacuum automatically? And the original Xiaomi is not terribly savvy. You can basically start it and stop it. And so I kind of started to think, well, what are the times in which it might be nice to run a vacuum? And my thinking was it's nice to run it when it's not a burdensome in our path kind of thing. So maybe that's when we go to bed. Maybe that's when we leave home. I was all, from the earliest stages, I flopped a lot between scenes and scripts for the idea of states the home should be in. Um,
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
but we carry, some we've used forever. Depart home is generally when we drive away from our house. It does various things. Walk home versus drive home does different things. Good night does different things. Okay, so the vacuum, I started to think, well, why don't I just tie this to like, if I flip on an input boolean, when I say good night to our, lady of choice, voice lady of choice, it'll start the vacuum as everything kind of winds down. Cool idea at the time, but in practice, just never really made sense. It was always something we were forgetting to do, a whole host of reasons. I'll tell you what, though, now with our little one running around, we have dirty floors. We need to run our vacuum pretty regularly. And
Yeah.
it's become this really kind of interesting opportunity now to build automation, like extend that automation around. Okay, if I notice throughout the day the floor is dirty, I can talk to my voice assistant. And it's a two-stage automation. Stage one is just, hey, we need to run the vacuum tonight. And all that does is it just turns that input boolean on. And then
Nice.
good night that is driven into our brains. When we are done for the day, good night. Arms the security system, locks the doors, all that stuff. But now the house kind of responds with this little thing. But the sort of magic revelation there was, I'm flying around meetings, my wife's flying around meetings. When our son's with us, we're trying to manage him, and just being able to kind of turn and tell our voice assistant, hey, we need to run the vacuum tonight. That is a godsend in a way that I never anticipated back when I thought, oh, this would be a novel way to play with our vacuum. So to your question, the evolution, there's been a lot of those kind of micro tweaks, that things have shown up. I mentioned the dishwasher. Okay, we used to run our dishwasher like once every couple of days. Well, with our son, we're running it every day. We got a lot of dirty dishes. Um, as happens when you guys know this, we had an unexpected surprise of our dishwasher of 10 years finally junked out, and so we needed to get a new one. And of course, they're all connected now. We use the Bosch Home Connect
Yeah,
integration home
nice.
system.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned, though, to my detriment, was if you set up, we try to schedule our dishwasher to run out of kind of peak hours so we don't get charged huge rates by our utility provider. But if you set up your schedule and then whoops, I forgot to put this spoon in there and I open it and close it again and we're good to go, right? No, you just killed your schedule. I didn't realize that initially. And sounds silly, but man, when I'm coming down and I got a ton of meetings ahead of me, and we're trying to get my son over to daycare, not having a dishwasher done and now I got to deal with that throughout the day, that represents meaningful stress. And so here again, a nice little multi-stage automation where I'm going to trust that we're going to run the dishwasher every night. When the one time during the day that I kind of open it and close it, that flips an input boolean, says, okay, for that day you've loaded this dishwasher at least once. And now we've tied it to good night with the kind of mobile alert so that when I run good night, if I've forgotten to reset the schedule, and I can tell this because the integration has all these sensors that I can pull off of, I get a little priority notification and my phone beeps at me regardless of what mode it's in. And I can go, oh, that's right. I need to remember to adjust our dishwasher schedule. So I'm really kind of leaning a lot on these simple automations to be my backstop so that I don't have to remember these things as
Yeah.
much.